Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this narration of the web series Humans Don't Make Good Familiars. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 14. Jake's Point of View. "Winner, Lieutenant Datahu," the captain announced. The crowd started cheering and shouting praise at the lieutenant, while I laid in the dirt floor at the pit. Yep, that's about right, I thought. "Good job, Sentinel, and thank you for the bout. I will be sure to put in your memory diving request," she said. "No problem, thanks," was all I was able to strain out. She flew away, and I activated my armor's heating word. Suma landed beside me after a few seconds, and I finally managed to gather enough strength to sit on my knees instead of laying down. "Well," she said sympathetically, "at least you didn't die." I was pretty sure that she was teasing me, but it felt kind of touch and go at times during the fight. "Yeah, and she agreed to put in the request, so, that's good," I said, checking my rib. They had healed, so I stood. Ro and Odin's blew down and landed beside Suma. "I lost 2 Gremlin seeds on that fight, Jake," Ro said as he shook his head sadly. I don't think he was really that worried about it, though. "I made 2, Odin's added, laughing. "Your confidence in me is overwhelming," I said, sarcastically. "Don't take it the wrong way," Odin said. "I probably couldn't beat you in a bout, but you were fighting the lieutenant. That match was decided before you ever even showed up." "Well, she was a court mage after all," Ro added. "Our court mage is really that impressive. I mean, I lost, yeah. But was it really that obvious what was going to happen?" I asked, confused. "Yes, Jake," Suma said plainly. "That is why I asked if you had any sort of special plan before you started." "What makes him so special? I got my butt kicked, sure, but why was everyone so certain I would lose?" I asked. "I mean, even I knew I was, but why?" I had been hearing people talk about court mages and royal mages for over a year now, and they were always words of praise. But I've never ever heard a single description, as far as I could remember, other than that they were extremely strong and skilled. "Well, to start, court mages have battlefield experience, so right away that should tell you something," Ro said. "And they are all chosen from the best of the high mages," Odin's added. "Yeah, that's the ranking system all mages fall into, right?" Suma mentioned something about that, I asked. "Yes, even achieving high mage status is a feat in itself, so becoming a court mage is a rare event," Suma said. "As you know, I am a medium class." "I think most people here are, although I heard there are 1 or 2 high-class mages in the second squad," Odin said. "What does someone have to do to go up in rank?" I asked. "Perform well on the battlefield. That is the main qualifying factor," Suma said. "But there are a set of trials as well. I do not know what they are, however." "I heard you had to slay a lesser dragon single-handedly," Ro said. "No one knows, though. It's a very well-kept secret," Odin said. "No one knows much about the court mages, and rumors are all most people have to go on, huh? I guess that explains why people are so quick to pretty much mythologize them," I thought. "Well, all that aside, you did well in your match, Jake," Suma complimented. They all talked a bit more about stories they'd heard about court mages, and they told me a legend of some of the famous court mages that fought the Vikings. After that, Ro and Odin's left, and Suma sent me home for the day. Good thing, too. After all that healing, I was exhausted. I plopped down on my bed and texted my mum that I was home safe, then went to sleep. There wasn't anything left to do now, except wait to see if we got approved for the memory delve. Honestly, things have been going fairly smoothly for the past few days. I should have known something was going to happen. "Familiar Zachariah, you have been brought before the Royal Council to explain the events of your actions that occurred during the Battle of Dragon's Fall Bay." End of chapter. Chapter 15. Zachariah's Point of View. "Familiar Zachariah, you have been brought before the Royal Council to explain the events and your actions that occurred during the Battle of Dragon's Fall Bay." And here I was thinking that I was here just because you lot missed me so much, I said. "Yeah, as impudent as ever, I see." Himpak, one of the generals of the Royal Army, spat. He was a disciplined and annoying little bird. "Actually, I think I may be getting better at it. It must be all the practice," I replied. "Enough bickering. We have more important matters to deal with within your tiresome back and forth," one of the council members interrupted. "Indeed, General, we need to get back to punishing this man who won the battle," I said. Your actions are no laughing matter, familiar Zachariah. You have committed several heinous acts and used the magic we ordered you to never use again, another of the council members shouted. If I hadn't, then you would have lost the battle, and the lives of every soldier present. My actions were not only necessary, they were justified, I said. So you admit that using the forbidden magic then? General Himpak asked. I did, but as I said, it was necessary. We will be the judges of that, the council member who had shouted earlier scoffed. Familiar Zachariah, we want you to start with the events that led up to the battle, and then explain how you came to the conclusion that your actions were justified. The head of the council, Bardic Sopra, said calmly. He was a reserved man who very rarely showed his feelings or spoke without thinking. We had met on several occasions, usually during trials such as this one. For me, it started when I was ordered to Dragonsport Bay to reinforce the defenses against the invasion. Perhaps start a little closer to the actual events in question, General Himpak said, sounding a bit irritated. Fine. I'd received word that the battle had begun and that the front needed reinforcements. Amboss and I decided to volunteer to assist. And where is Sir Amboss today? I expected him to be here with you, Bardic Sopra asked. He had personal matters that needed attending, so he was unable to join us at this time, I explained. I see. Well, his presence is not necessarily needed in this meeting, but it is not a matter that bears worry. Please continue. The enemy had flown from their ships to the shore and were beating down our fortifications. Amboss and I decided that the best course of action was to attack the ships themselves. They were striking and retreating to the safety of their ships to rest and recuperate, so we reasoned that destroying their ships would force them to land on shore, where our defenses were strongest and could deal with them better, I said. A wise strategy. How did that play out? It went well at first, but they broke our lines a few hours later, so in the end, all it did was buy us time. How exactly did you defeat 37 transport ships? Each has enough supplies to transport over 1,000 yama. They are effectively floating fortresses, one of the council members asked. We deemed it was impossible to attack them from above or behind, so we didn't. Amboss cast a spell that allowed us to travel under the water while I sank their ships with a rot spell. And that was when you used your death magic? Sopra asked. That is correct. And was that the only time in the battle that you used it? No. I also used it later in the battle. Please, tell us about that instance. I took a deep breath and began. 4 hours after casting the spell, all the ships had finally sunk, and the soldiers who were still residing on them had landed on the shore. My plan was going as expected, and the defenses were dealing with them accordingly. However, some of the soldiers were apparently able to overcome the defenses and capture a strategic point. This allowed them to push back and start gaining ground. As I spoke, I noticed several of the council members were whispering amongst themselves, clearly unhappy about something. One of them flew over to the head of the council, Bardic Sopra, and whispered something to him. He simply nodded, apologized for the interruption, and asked me to continue. A tactical retreat was ordered from the front to regroup and reorganize. Myself, Amboss, and around 100 other soldiers stayed behind to cover the retreat. And that was when you used your death magic again? One of the council members asked. Yes. Why? As the battle raged, the 100 slowly started to dwindle. Soon there was only 70, then 50. By the time I realized what was happening, only 25 of us remained. We needed reinforcements, but I knew we were not going to get any. So I cast a spell that brought the survivors time to fall back. The spell? It was a famine type, correct? Bardic Sopra asked. Yes. What was its effects? It caused approaching soldiers to become weak with hunger. Once they crossed the threshold I had designated during the spell's casting, it would take effect. That spell saved the lives of the remaining 25. So you did use the lethal form of forbidden magic? The council member who shouted earlier shouted again, as if he had caught me in some kind of trap. No, the spell itself was not lethal, I denied. Then the soldiers who were affected by the spell lived? Sopra asked. No, most of them died, I said. Can you explain the contradiction? He asked, confused. The spell itself wasn't what killed them. It was most likely the fall. Fall? Well, most of them were flying when they crossed the threshold. The ones that were atop their familiars may have survived, but they would have fallen off their familiars when the weakness took hold. I speak from experience. Being trampled by a familiar is not something one has a great chance of surviving, I explained. The council members all started grumbling to themselves again, looking quite upset. He admits it. He used a forbidden magic and used it in a way that we specifically instructed him not to. I followed your instructions to the letter. I did not cast any spell that took the lives of Niema in any way considered vile, I declared. You just admitted to killing those Niema with... The council member yelled, but was cut off by Bardic Sopra. Enough, Zachariah. The council needs to consider what you have told us. Until a decision has been made, please return home and await our next summons. With that, I was escorted out of the council's meeting room by several Niema guards. I contacted Ambros and told him what happened. He summoned me, and I reappeared next to him in our home. Did you finish? I asked. I did. Ashim is uneasy about something, but he wouldn't tell me about what, Ambros said. What can make a dragon nervous? I asked. Very few things, and all of them are bad. And he didn't want any help dealing with it? No. He said it was a private matter between the dragons, Ambros said. Any idea of what it could be? I asked. If I had to guess, I'd imagine it's Deja. Yes, the strange one, as far as dragons go anyway, I agreed. But nonetheless, if he doesn't want our help, there is nothing we can do, Ambros said dejectedly. He was close friends with Ashim, and has known him longer than anyone. He feels he owes him a great debt, as not being able to help him probably hurts. Jake, I'm sure he'll call on you if he needs any help, I told Ambros. Jake! Ambros nodded, but still seemed sad. Jake! End of chapter. I would quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and Patreons. Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Barky, Lord Azrakal, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Dragzoon WRE, Holly's Sister, Arcadian. Thank you very much.